Hey guys, it's Destiny, and today we'll be going over some Honkai style tier lists. I'm going to be giving my thoughts on them and also letting you guys know where I would possibly move characters, what I personally think of them, and also let me know in the comments down below how you guys feel about these characters, if you agree with the placements on these websites that we will be going through, and so on. Without further ado though, let's get straight into it. So we're going to start with Prydwen, and as you see, they have a new tier list for 1.2, and here we're just gonna go through the placements. They have from all the way from S+ to C tier. So let's begin from the top and then make our way down, and I'll give my thoughts on these characters. To begin, we have Seele at S+. I personally do agree with this. Seele has been a phenomenal main DPS character, so I definitely can see why Seele has remained in S+ for now basically 2 patches in a row. As we see here for S+, we also have the double Bronyas, if you will. I'm not too surprised about that. Bronya has definitely been an exceptional character for sure since the start of the game, and Blade's release has actually made her even better in my opinion because of how well they synergize. So overall, just from the team aspect, Bronya is really good as well. Silverwolf, I can say the same about her. She can go on practically any team for the most part, so I can definitely see why she's also an S+. Locha over here is in S+ as well. He has been a phenomenal healer. I can definitely get down with this with him in S+. Now we're in the S tier, and we first have Blade. I definitely agree that Blade is a very strong DPS. I've been using him myself, and I've been building him pretty well overall. I definitely agree this character is S territory for sure. Now, there could be an argument to possibly bump him up where Seele is, but it ultimately comes down to how you view both these characters. Blade is definitely less skill point hungry than Seele, so that allows for more skill points to be used by your teammates. Like for example, Bronya, she wants to use her skill points, of course, for the skill for Blade. There are definitely really good synergies with Blade and Bronya, where Bronya will eat up the skill points or be able to use them more because a Blade is not using them as much. So if you think about skill point wise, Blade can definitely be a good contender for possibly an S+ tier, but it just comes down to how you view both of the characters. Seele is the only character who has resurgence, of course, so that definitely gives her a plus, but I definitely think Blade can possibly be up here for sure, but S tier is definitely really good overall. I think Blade is a very powerful character. Now for Pela, she is pretty good as well. I can definitely see why she's an S. I do like Pela quite a lot. I think she's really good for reducing defenses and also getting rid of buffs on enemies, so that's pretty good overall. Tingyun, also really good, amazing buffer. I love using Tingyun, and she's really good for buffing up lightning characters, especially with her skill kit, and also buffing up their damage. So overall, really good character to just have as a support, and she's also not too skill point hungry as well, depending on who you use her with. Bailu and Gepard are both an S tier. Personally, I think Gepard could have stayed in S+, but I mean, it just depends because you'll have him on the same tier as Locha over here. So it just comes down to how you view Gepard, but I definitely think that Gepard is worthy of S+. I think he's a great character utility-wise because he can freeze enemies. He also is able to give team-wide shields, really beefy shields at that, and his traces are also able to allow him to have more taunt overall, so he's constantly getting hit. Bailu, I can agree with being S. Do wish she had a cleanse. I think that's the main thing that honestly holds Bailu back, but if she had a cleanse, I don't know. Do you guys think that it's fair that Bailu has a revive and not a cleanse? I think if she had a cleanse, it'd be really good. Maybe if it's hidden behind an Eidolon. I don't think it's hidden behind an Eidolon. I don't think so. I would have to check. But I think the revive is pretty good for sure, because I've definitely had cases in Memory of Chaos where Bailu's revive is very handy. Now we have A tier, and A tier definitely has a lot of characters for sure. Clara, in my opinion, well, from my personal experience, I feel like Clara is definitely worthy of A+ or even S tier. Clara is a really strong character, and I do believe the release of Yukong and Locha made her even more strong. I do have a showcase video that is revolved around Yukong because I do have a built out Yukong, but that team performed really well. It's one of my strongest teams currently on my account. So I do think Clara could have honestly stayed up here. I just think she's really strong, and maybe she's starting to be, I guess, a little bit slept on. I'm not too sure. What do you guys think about Clara? I think she's pretty good overall. So I don't know. That's just my personal thoughts on Clara. Yuan. This is one I really wanted to talk about because a lot of people have very mixed opinions on. I'm just going to share my opinions. I would love to hear you guys' opinions about Yuan in the comments down below as well. I'm just going to say straight off the bat, I don't think he's a bad character. As we know, Yuan is a bit of a tricky character to tier due to how a lot of people feel about him regarding his numbers or how he may be viewed objectively as well as subjectively. Objectively, of course, basically be the numbers and possibly what is his fastest clear time for MOC turns, but subjectively is how you guys feel when you play him. So personally, when I play him, I think he's a pretty smooth character. When he does get crowd controlled, it does kind of suck, depending on how many Lightning Lord stacks I have. But overall, it just comes down to who's on your team to support him. That's a huge thing that matters. I mean, to be fair, it matters with every character. I believe that the reason why Yuan may be tiered A now is primarily due to how Erudition performs as a whole. If we go back to the tier list, none of the S+ or S characters are Erudition. I know Blade does AoE damage, but he is Destruction, so he is a bit different than, of course, Erudition. And Blade also does a bunch of AoE damage. So as we see here, all the Erudition class characters are A or below. So what I personally think it might be is because a lot of us are now comparing Erudition to Destruction, because Destruction can also do AoE damage, well, at least Clara and Blade in particular. So because of that, a lot of us are now comparing, well, how does Yuan, Himeko, Serval, how do they compare to Clara and Blade? And that's where it starts getting a little tricky to know how to tier these Erudition characters. I think Yuan is a good character, but I do think there are some solutions that could improve his overall potential, such as possibly new relics that can further improve follow-up attack damage or AoE damage in general, primarily a new 4-piece. I know we do already have a set like Inner Salcedo that helps with follow-up attack damage, but I think a 4-piece might be pretty good as well, one that would possibly become his best in slot versus the current sets he uses, if possible. Another solution can possibly be a character that buffs up allies to do more AoE or follow-up attack damage, since that can further help with AoE damage potential for Yuan, Himeko, and so on. I think that would be a really, really good thing. Overall, it's just if we had another buffer, or rather just a buffer that primarily focuses on AoE damage, primarily focuses on Erudition. I think this will be a really good solution overall to kind of help with that. And the last thing I can think of is possibly it's just dependent on the buff in MOC. Because these tier lists are based on MOC, people rank these characters based on their performance within that mode. So because of that, if the MOC buff is not inherently helping Erudition, it might not be too good to tier an Erudition character super high unless they're just performing way better than every other character. So I think if we have a buff that is catered towards Erudition, kind of like how we did in 1.0, that can definitely skyrocket Yuan or definitely help with his tiering, at least for Prydwen's case. That can definitely be a good solution as well. But I do have to say, I've definitely seen a lot of powerful Yuans for sure, and they're definitely clearing Memory of Chaos pretty fast. For instance, if Zila is clearing Memory of Chaos in, I don't know, 2 cycles, and Yuan is clearing it in 4 cycles. If I'm being completely honest with you guys, I still think that's completely fine. It's just the way it is. Like 2 cycles or 4 cycles, it's not a major difference in my opinion, unless those 2 cycles were so critical for you to get the full amount of stars. But relatively speaking, once you're in MOC 9 and 10, if I'm not mistaken, you basically get about 10 cycles to clear each side. So if it was only 4 cycles, it's still a pretty good performance overall. And I definitely wouldn't say this character is bad if it took more cycles to clear something. And that's just personally how I see it. I definitely think that with proper investment, which this could be said about any character, it can just be good overall. And a character can definitely perform very well in MOC. So when you do see tier lists like these, and you do see that maybe one of your favorite characters is not ranked as high as you believe they are, you do have to consider the fact it's comparing, the cycles, it's comparing the numbers and whatnot, which is definitely things to consider, but you also have to account for, well, when you're playing the game, how does the character perform? So once again, I think this thing that I'm saying can apply to a bunch of characters. With proper investment, they can all be relatively pretty well in these modes. But yeah, I just wanted to give some solutions as to things that can possibly improve Yuan's ranking and Yuan's potential overall. I think the buffer thing could be really good. So that's just my personal thoughts. Let me know, of course, what you guys think. Now for Qingque, she's so cute. I love this character. I definitely want to build this character fully, and she is really powerful as well. As long as you know, invest into her, getting copies of her is even better. This character can definitely be nuts, but you know, it is gacha within gacha, so some people may be scared about that. I wouldn't say that she's a bad character to invest into. I still think she's pretty good, so I would definitely say she can possibly be ranked up. If there was an A+, I would probably put her there. Her damage potential is really good, and if you want a really good quantum damage dealer, she is an option. Welt is really good. I don't have a lot to say about him. I think he's really good and unique with what he does. So I feel like him being unique definitely allows for more potential to be there. Like, for instance, him slowing down the enemy can really be useful. It just ultimately comes down to what team comps you have. Qingque is, in my opinion, he's a really strong character. He's really good, especially in MOC, because I personally use him in MOC myself, and I think he's a pretty strong character, especially for those who do have him built out already. Really good character. I could definitely see him, like, it depends on your Qingque, of course, but if the MOC has a lot of ice weak enemies, he could definitely be up there, and he could definitely be more high on the tier list, but it ultimately comes down to what the current MOC entails. But I definitely think this character is really, really strong, especially with how his kit works with the crit rate and crit damage. Asta is A tier. I can personally probably get down with that. She's really good though, I will say, for the attack buffs and the speed buffs, even better once you get copies, but Asta isn't bad at all. I think she's pretty good. Then we have Yukong. Yukong is also pretty nice as well. I personally love this character. Once again, I've done a showcase on her. Really, really powerful character. I personally love her. And if you want to check out that showcase, feel free to. March 7th, Natasha and Trailblazer. I think this is okay for the most part. I personally think if there was an A+, I would probably put all of them there. They're all really good characters for helping to sustain your team. So I think they could be ranked a bit higher, but I don't know if I would put them in the same ballpark as these three characters. But overall, these are pretty good characters as well. Definitely worth the investment. I highly recommend them. Now we have the B and C tiers, where I don't personally agree with some of these. I think Sushang is definitely better than I guess some may think she is. Even better with copies, of course. But I think Sushang definitely has really good damaging potential. I think she's pretty good. She could probably be bumped up. Sampo, in my opinion, is definitely going to become an A tier or higher character. Probably A tier since this tier list only has S+, S, and A. But Sampo is definitely going to go up there once Kafka comes out for sure because of the damage over time. That might possibly change the meta. I just think damage over time is going to become way more relevant once we do get a character like Kafka. So I think he'll be bumped up, and I think he'll be pretty good contender overall, or teammates rather, with that. And then the rest, Dan Heng is really strong. Of course, if you haven't built, I do recommend him. I've seen some crazy numbers with Dan Heng, and I think free-to-play wise, he's a pretty good option. Now we have C tier. The only one I probably don't agree with when it comes to C tier is Arlen, and I know Arlen is kind of a hot take. Arlen is really good with a good amount of investment. And when I mean a good amount, I really mean a good amount, but I have seen some really powerful Arlens. Here's some gameplay, of course, of Arlen, just to, you know, show you guys what he could do with a built Arlen. You really have to build him. And the one problem I think with Arlen is also that because you want him at such low HP thresholds, you have to also have a really good sustain with Arlen to make sure he doesn't go down in battle. Gepard would likely be your best bet because Gepard is able to give shields to the whole team, and he also has a lot of aggro overall, especially through his traces. So Gepard would be a really good teammate to make sure that Arlen isn't really getting hit, but Arlen can safely lose HP with a skill kit and keep doing more and more damage to the enemy. So I think Arlen can be bumped up if you do consider possibly adding Gepard in the mix, and you also have a pretty good built out Arlen. I think he can get bumped up, but that's just my personal thoughts on the Prydwen tier list. If we were to go check out another tier list real quick just to see where they have characters placed, here is the GenshinLab.com tier list for 1.2. As we see, they have quite different opinions, especially with Welt. Welt is SS here. They definitely have more SS characters. Here's the S tier, which I can possibly get down with this as well. As I said, Jing Yuan can be really good depending on what's going on, but I could definitely see him being a bit higher. Here's the A tier, the B tier. It's not too different when you get to the lower tiers. But the high tiers, I've noticed the main thing that's different is Welt. Welt, once again, is a really good character. He's really unique, as I said, so him being currently unique is definitely something to consider. And for imaginary as a whole, like an imaginary team, well, it's just a pretty good option. So I think that this tier list is fine and dandy as well. Of course, I've already stated in the Prydwen tier list where I'd possibly move characters, but this is just what the Genshin Lab tier list is. But yeah, that'll be all for this video. Let me know in the comments down below where you guys would tier characters. I just wanted to review these tier lists and say where I would possibly move characters. I hope this video isn't too long. I feel like if I check, it's pretty long because I think I talked a little bit too much about Yuan. But I thought I'd just give my thoughts on that because Yuan seems to be something that a lot of players do feel a way about, just if he's really good, if he's not really good. It just ultimately comes down to your Yuan, and also I feel like what's currently going on in the game. But I hope you guys did enjoy this video. If you want to see more style content from me, make sure to subscribe. I might do more tier list reviews like this in the future if you guys really enjoyed them. This is my first time doing a tier list review, if you will, so if you enjoyed it, let me know. And if you think my takes are really bad, you can also let me know, of course, in a respectful way. As long as we're all respectful, I'm all down for all types of conversation on how you view these characters. Hope you all have a good one, of course. Peace.